noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, we got a heck of a show put together for you today on the Hans and Scotty Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. There's never a dull moment in sports radio. I mean, it's always busy, especially here in the state of Utah. It's always cranking. Feels like last year this time we're hyped up and talking about an NHL team that was coming, and it feels like every time I wake up, there's some type of breaking news, there's some type of issue, there's some type of excitement in the sports world. And today is no different. So we've put together a really good show for you today. Mitch Harper is going to join us here in just a second. At 12:30, I'm actually really excited about this, and big props to Lloyd for setting this up. Greg Skordas is going to join us, and Greg Skordas is legal representation for many, many years in this state. He's been a KSL contributor for many years, and he's going to be the new 9 to 12 show that's going to be going down on KSL. So excited to catch up with Greg Skordas at 12:30 to get some legal perspective on this. And then Keith Smith is one of my favorite NBA insiders, going to join us at 1 o'clock, and we're going to talk NBA postseason. But like I said, it's just busy. It's busy. And when you have situations like this Jake Retzlaff situation, it really gets touchy, and it's hard to navigate. And the best thing that we can attempt to do is stick to the facts as much as we possibly can. And that's what we're going to attempt to do with Mitch Harper, our BYU insider, as well as Skordas and others as we go throughout this day. But let's welcome in our guest, Mitch Harper. Mitch, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Hans. It's a jarring thing, with this story of Jake Retzlaff and this civil lawsuit of sexual assault levied on Jake. It's intense stuff, and it really is a delicate deal because you are talking about people's lives and there's a lot involved. So it was a jarring thing, and reading that lawsuit, it's intense stuff, and it's great magnitude when it comes with this story. But I'm happy to be on and talk with you about it.
Well, you can go read through Mitch Harper's piece at KSLSports.com. And, Mitch, I got to imagine that was a tough piece to put together.
No question. I think that, again, reading that lawsuit is intense. And you think of the alleged victim, and you think of the magnitude of what is being tossed to Jake Retzlaff. And again, no criminal charges. Again, as of today, there's no criminal charges in regards to this. It's all a civil lawsuit, but it's intense. And BYU sports have faced cases and that have a lot of national scrutiny. But I mean, honestly, Hans, I think since probably the 2004 cases in the Gary Crowton era, with that freshman class in 2004, this is probably the biggest, and it might be even bigger just because it's quarterback one. It's Jake Retzlaff, a guy that it was in the national spotlight everywhere, leading BYU to a 9-0 start, and the first ever Jewish quarterback, and he's. Just last week, he's in Israel representing BYU and his faith with teammates. And, he's been a well-traveled guy, and he's been the face of BYU football. And then this happens, and this comes out. It puts into perspective how things can change quickly. And then when this sort of deal happens, comes out, it's something that has to be taken completely serious, and all parties involved have to kind of have their due diligence and see how this plays out.
Well, the details of the case were shocking, and props to many that went and got these details and the facts of the case, and including Kevin, who I thought did a good job of putting this together originally. What do you think, or how do you think at this point BYU will handle this situation? And Mitch, you've been doing this a long time, and I know you know the inner workings of BYU really well. And you just talked about some of the situations that we've covered and dealt with over the many, many years that we've been doing this. How in the past have they handled these kinds of things, and how do you expect BYU to handle this?
You know, I do believe they take this incredibly serious, and it's unique because it's not a criminal case. It's a civil lawsuit, as we talked about, but then there's the honor code element. There's also the element of, you know, what's committed to him financially through revenue sharing or NIL. What, you know, not that that's going to be factoring in the decision, but what does he do financially as far as compensation, as it's getting closer to a world where schools can pay athletes directly via revenue sharing, you know, religions involved. I mean, there's just so many factors. And then also you have to respect victims, and there's a history there. I think BYU's taken this incredibly seriously. And, you know, the honor code has been something in the past that maybe I don't factor into my line of thought as in my workflows, you know, in the off season as much maybe as I once did, just because it's, you know, hasn't been something that is kind of out there as it maybe once was publicly. It's maybe more private, but it is something still that matters a ton to the Board of Trustees. And, you know, going forward, I really wonder, and something that's going to be a big question to me going forward is, you know, when it comes to the BYU side of it, whatever their decision is, if it is before any sort of resolution with this civil lawsuit, you know, who makes this decision? Does it get to that level of the Board of Trustees, or is this President Shane Reese? Is it Kalani, Santiago? It's still to be determined. I don't know right now, you know, but this is something that I have to imagine, you know, has to be factoring in and consulting with Board of Trustees, I would think, because they care about the honor code and the safety of their students and student athletes and individuals and having a positive culture or campus. So it's something that, but it also feels like this is a case that doesn't have a comparable. It's, you know, because Brandon Davies in 2011 was a highly publicized deal, but that was not anything against the law. That was just, you know, a man having consensual relations, and it wasn't anything criminal and nefarious. So that was legal action that was in public eye as far as, you know, documents and lawsuits in court of law. That was just BYU's honor code, and it got public and, you know, was something that was a highly scrutinized deal because BYU was making a big run. This is something completely different because you just haven't seen. You know, we know that the BYU quarterback position always just gets a massive spotlight, but we've never really seen a BYU quarterback in the spotlight, a starting quarterback, for a legal deal like this, and for it to be sexual assault and a victim claiming what was in that lawsuit. It's intense. And so there's really no precedent for this. And first week on the job for Brian Santiago, and, you know, President Shane Reese, he's been on the job for a couple years now. This is a really big moment that really kind of really has a ripple effect potentially for a long period of time with what direction this goes. So I would have to think BYU is going to take its due process with this and really let all the facts come out, and also give Jake Retzlaff the chance to be innocent until proven guilty. I mean, that's what's tricky in all this too, is that you do want to live in a world where your innocence is still there until you're proven guilty, and with it not being criminal, like what's the precedent for that? So there's so many angles to this.
Oh, there's so many angles, and you know, you brought this up that Brian Santiago just takes the seat as athletic director, and I will tell you that in my 5 years at BYU, I dealt with the honor code throughout pretty much the entirety of my time at BYU. It was tough, and in my experience with the honor code, it's really taken away from the athletic directors or the athletic department's decision making, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In my experience as a player, when I was on the inner sanctum and I was dealing with certain things, Lavelle had a say. Rondo Feldberg might have had a say. But when the honor code gets involved, the honor code made the decision. Is it still like that in your experience and understanding, Mitch?
That would be the thought, especially when it is a honor code case. And I remember years ago, it'd always be, Carrie Jenkins would be a spokesperson on it, have to give public statements on that. And she still works closely with the university as a, PR person in the office of President Shane Reese. But yeah, I would expect that would still be the case when it comes to an honor code deal. And BYU noted that they'll have the mandated Title IX investigation that'll go through and have to go through that process. And, that's serious stuff because BYU there's been previous reporting about, Title IX, and there's been positive changes. I think BYU's done. I think there has been positive growth in that area. And it was really, and when you do talk about the Title IX office, it was something that was a area that allowed BYU to get into the Big 12 in 2021, where Kansas's president noted that BYU made significant improvements with its relations in the Title IX office and relationships and environment for the LGBT community. There's so many different aspects to that, but it also has helped BYU's cause with the realignment back then. But that case will have to, move forward with that. And I think what's going to be big going forward, though, is just timeline. Because today, as of today, there's 100 days until BYU kicks it off against Portland State. You shave off another 30 days for the start of fall camp. Tentatively, we don't have an official date yet, but somewhere around July 30th, July 31st, they're going to open up camp. That's about 10 weeks from now. It'll be here before we know it, Hans. And it's you got the summer golf media event at the end of June. That takes on a completely different tone now. And then Big 12 Media Day. I would imagine with a starting returning quarterback in Jake Retzlaff, you would have had him as a spokesperson. Now do you change that up? This is big. Where all those things that were kind of tent pole events to your off season and highlighting your program that you think might be a top 10 team potentially, at least some outlets have thought that nationally. That now feels like spots where you're just like, you don't want to get that if you're just someone that's around the program and you're dealing with that. So it becomes something that will command the conversation until there's resolution. So timeline of how they sort this out and make a decision, that's going to be really interesting because the season is going to be here. It's the end of the school year for many right now, but it starts to heat up with player ran practices and all of that. Does Jake still run those? Does he still be around the facility and running those PRPs? There's so many questions that need to be answered, and it's going to command the conversation until there's really a clear resolution, whether he's in or out on BYU's side of it. And that's where, time, do you wait it out or do you make a quick decision? That's the tough challenges in front of BYU right now on their side of things.
Well, Mitch, as you and I have experienced BYU, as you've mentioned, BYU has done a better job of handling their business internally and trying to keep it as private as they can possibly keep it to a certain extent. And I would imagine that that's what they're going to attempt to do with this whole thing, whether they're going to suspend him, keep him on the field, however they're going to handle it, would be my guess that they would want to keep that secret and close to the vest. One area of light I might be able to shed for people is how this is handled or was handled in honor code situations. And in honor code offenses, what happened in my case multiple times was I was assigned a honor code officer. And that honor code officer acted as if he's kind of a religious consultant as well as an investigative consultant. He wanted to get the information and he wanted to get the truth and he wanted to get my side and he wanted to get as much information as he could. He would compile it. They would keep it in a file and I would visit with them. In my case, it was twice a month for a certain period of time. And it was tough. It was exhausting. And the conversations were exhausting and at times humiliating and really tough. And so just so people understand, I truly believe the cause of the honor code. Like, I very much believe in what the honor code stands for. It stands for a higher moral, a higher standard of living. It stands for those things, and I love it. I love what it represents. I love what it stands for. It was the officiating of it that I really struggled with, because it became such a he said, she said, or you did this, and this is how it needs to be handled. It was really tough at times, Mitch. Really, really tough. And I don't know if you'd ever dealt with the honor code or kind of how they handle these cases, but my guess is, and correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is he will be assigned an honor code officer, and they will be responsible for the diligent duty of their own level of understanding of this case. Would I be accurate or wrong in that?
I would expect so. Then that's, and I think that, the honor code faced a lot of scrutiny. Publicly, there was like a public social media account, Instagram account that really kind of brought about change in like the mid 2010s, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. Because there was always kind of that almost like knowledge where people that had been involved with the honor code, like yourself, almost a narc system, it felt like, where people, it was just like out to get revenge or something like that. And I think there's been improvement on that side of it when it comes to the honor code. And I think BYU has been really responsive to kind of hearing voices and hearing the responses from students and their experiences to create a better environment, more inclusive, and feeling more safety, and not just going to be outed and, be gone and lose your opportunity to be a BYU student because someone had something axe to grind or whatnot. So I would expect that would be a similar case, in Jake Retzlaff's deal with this sort of situation being completely different where it's public record, but there's so much nuance to this, and how BYU handles it will be just something to really monitor, because it's hard to really talk about the football side right now, just because you just again read that lawsuit and it's intense stuff, and you just kind of want to focus on that and the alleged victim and what Jake Retzlaff is facing, and his attorney has stated that Jake's going to continue to focus on football, and that's going to be the goal for him, and that's the messaging from his lawyer, and that's where their mindset is at right now. But BYU, it's just a kind of it's a different place, and they have made it clear that they want to stand for something more, and so do you continue to put him out as QB1 if this is ongoing? And I still don't have a clear timeline of how long something like this would go. Is there, does this stretch into the season? I would think, but I don't know yet. We have to figure out all the dates. What's the court date? What's that going to look like? There's so many unknowns right now, and it's a difficult circumstance, but it's a bigger story than just simply sports too, because it just has so many angles to it that factor into this conversation.
It sure does, Mitch, and it's a touchy situation, and my heart goes out to Shane Reese. It goes out to Brian Santiago, goes out to Kalani Sitake, because these guys need to handle this very, very stringently, and they've got to be very diligent. And this is a really tough situation to handle. And we just saw a case in Logan that was not handled correctly, and jobs were lost. And it was a really tough thing to deal with. When these cases aren't handled properly, whether it was 2023 when it was handled or it's 2025, there's always a footprint. There's always a paper trail. And so I truly hope that everybody is handling this the best way they possibly can. That's my hope for each one of these guys. Mitch, thanks for joining me.
You bet, Hans. Take care.
Yeah, good job on all this, too. Your piece was solid. Go to KSLSports.com, and you can find the Mitch Harper piece on this. It's very well done, and I think that you'll get a lot of information from that. That's at KSLSports.com. Attorney Greg Skordas joins us next to talk about the civil case filed against Jake Retzlaff.
You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's
right. Yeah!
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, I'm really excited and very honored to have this next guest in studio with me, and it's somebody that I've heard and listened to and know very well of over the years here in the state of Utah. It's Greg Skordas here in studio with us. He is going to be starting a new show on KSL.
Yeah, we're starting Inside
9th.
Sources June 9th, taking over for Dave Nujanovic, and I'm going to be working with Harley Richardson, the 9 to 12 slot, starting in a couple weeks.
Well, Greg, I mean, this is nothing new to you. You've done some media. So.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit. It's been fun to be on the same team as Hans Olsen.
Yeah, you know, that's the key, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we
go.
all get in this foxhole
right.
together.
That's right.
Try to fight through some of these stories, and you were the first name that came to my mind, and big thanks to Lloyd. He did a fantastic job of tracking you down. He had to go through 4 or 5 different people to get to you because you're an important person.
Well, I'm here now, so
Yeah.
I'm captive now.
We've got you, and excited to kind of jump into this case with you because I am not familiar with the legalities. Very familiar with sports, but the legalities really get murky for me. And I want to start with this. Why civil and not legal when talking about this case coming down on Jake Retzlaff?
That's a good question. And in fact, I asked the same thing. Why isn't this being prosecuted criminally? And if you read the civil lawsuit, you can see that the alleged victim here, and this is the case against Jake Retzlaff, did at least contact initially the Provo Police Department, and there was some attempt to take this criminally. You would always expect, Hans, a victim in a case like this to pursue it criminally first. So I'm assuming, just reading between the lines, because this is alleged to have occurred 18 months ago, that the prosecutors, the Utah County Attorney's Office, decided not to charge the case criminally, and so this is now her only remedy.
Why would they decide not to pursue?
It looks just, even from her own statements here in this complaint, and I'm reading the civil complaint, she was reluctant to come forward. She was reluctant to disclose the name of the supposed perpetrator. There's probably not a lot of evidence given that time delay, and I just assume that the Utah County Attorney's Office and the Provo Police Department, both of which, Hans, are pretty aggressive. They're not ones to just walk away from a case because it involves a high-profile person, that they decided they couldn't prevail, that there wasn't enough evidence to prevail in this case. So you look at the forensic evidence. You look at when you have a sex case, it's let's face it, it's a he said, she said. So to corroborate what she said, you would want some forensic evidence, DNA, signs of bruising, signs of injury, signs of something like that. And given the time between the alleged incident and the report, there may not have been much evidence. And I just assumed that they just didn't have enough case to charge it criminally. Now, the civil case it has a little bit less of a standard. If you sue someone civilly, you have to prove your case by what we call a preponderance of the evidence. In other words, you have a better case than the other side. But in a criminal case, the standard of proof is much higher. We call it proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So a prosecutor has to say, I have to be 95% sure I'm going to win this case before they can file it. Whereas a civil attorney is going to look at it and say, I think I have a pretty good case. I think I have a better than average case.
Are civil cases handled in front of a jury?
They can be, and in this case, they did request a jury. So that's a good question. It's like a criminal case because they have the right. In this case, there was a jury demanded, and it would be a jury of 8. In criminal cases, they have to be unanimous. Civil cases, I think it's like 2/3, so you need 6 out of the 8, something like that. Ultimately, a judge oversees the case, but in both cases, you would have a right to a jury trial.
So just because they requested it, does that mean they will get it, or is there some processes of making that decision?
The request is enough. They can always say, we don't want a jury trial. But in a case like this, just from my experience, the money, if you're looking at a money case, you're going to get more from a jury than from a judge who's going to look at it very analytically, where a jury can be more upset or more angry at the situation or one way or the other. but you're not going to get a $1 million verdict. Not that I'm saying this case is worth $1 million by any means, from a judge, as likely as you are from a jury who could be more impassioned from what they're hearing.
So at this point, the entire point of the civil case is to receive money.
Period. That's all it's about. Yeah, This is a civil suit. They've alleged several causes of action, assault, battery, those type of things. But ultimately, it's to collect money and nothing more.
How long typically does a civil case like this take to activate, pursue, and close?
Okay, so it's activated now. It was filed yesterday. They filed an amended complaint today, and I was sort of comparing them, and I can't see the difference, but there's something they filed differently. I don't even think Retzlaff's been served yet as attorney. So we're in the very early stages, Hans. And a case like this, to get to trial before it'll see a jury, probably not even in 2026. You're probably thinking of 18 to 24 months. A criminal case, they move on a faster track because the Constitution has that whole speedy trial thing. We don't have that in civil cases. And in criminal cases, it's because a person might be in jail. There's no reason to wait 2 years. But criminal cases always trump civil cases when you're in court and there's judges are trying to set trials. So a civil case is going to be not a low priority, but a lower priority in terms of getting to trial than a criminal case.
Now, one of the higher profile cases that I've ever heard of a legal trial and then a civil trial was O.J. Simpson.
Exactly.
And it is possible to lose a legal trial and win a civil because that's exactly what happened in O.J.'s case.
And it's exactly for the reason we talked about a minute ago, because the standard of proof in the criminal case is so high, the jury couldn't reach it. But they didn't have to get that much evidence in a civil case to win. You know what I mean? So in a criminal case, man, you have to have the unanimous jury find there's no doubt that this occurred. In a civil case, hey, we'll take 2/3 and did it more likely than not occur. Does that make sense?
That does.
So it's a lower standard of proof. That's why you could win one and not the other.
Okay, so we saw O.J. with a legal first and then a civil.
Right.
How often do you see a civil and then a legal?
Rarely. And in this case, just specifically talking about this case, in as much as it's alleged to have occurred, I think in November of 23.
That's correct.
You would think if they were going to file the criminal end of it, they would have done so by now. This state's clearly had enough time and evidence and wherewithal to pursue it criminally. My guess is the fact that they haven't means that they probably won't. But they still could. They still could. It would just seem that that's unlikely.
So, Greg, what are the chances? By the way, Greg Skordas in with us. Excited to have him here. Did you say 43 years in practicing?
Longer than you've been born, probably. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I've been a lawyer for a long time.
I was just starting life
there you
at
go,
that point, but that's incredible. Congratulations to you for a very long and successful career. And I know that you've probably had many cases like this on your desk over those years. So it's great to get your insight, and so excited for you to start your new show on KSL June 9th. You're going to be hearing from Greg Skordas, and I'm excited about that. You and I talked a little bit about this. What are the chances that this filing that came down yesterday caught Jake Retzlaff, Kalani Sitake, and BYU flat-footed?
0%. Okay. I would assume that a good civil lawyer, and I don't know these lawyers that are representing the victim in this case, the alleged victim, would have reached out to at least Retzlaff and said, hey, we've got this case. We're coming down the pike. Do you want to settle? Do you want to talk to us? Do you want to try to resolve it? So that day's probably long since passed. And I would also assume that because the Provo Police Department investigated it, that there had to be some level of referral to the Title IX people at BYU, which would have triggered a call to the coach. So I assume that nobody was caught flat-footed. They may have been disappointed that it ultimately was filed, thinking maybe it wouldn't be. But I think people were probably on the guard for it.
So I also, just reading through the report, I see that there were some accusations of the Provo Police Department giving advice on how she should potentially proceed. How much trouble could they potentially be in this civil situation?
Let me just say this. I have practiced for 43 years, and I've worked with the Provo Police Department, both as a prosecutor at Salt Lake County and as a defense attorney, so I've been on the opposite side of them. I don't believe that they would have treated it the way that's being articulated here. I don't believe that the Provo Police Department said, hey, this is you're never going to get anywhere, and there's no justice. I think their words were really. I mean, I haven't answered your question, and I apologize. I just find that hard to believe. So I don't think the Provo Police Department's going to be in trouble. I think they investigated it, but based on the allegations that she's raising in her complaint, there's going to be an internal investigation and to determine what level of care they did give her, what level of investigation they gave this case. But Provo Police Department's pretty aggressive. They don't walk away from a case because it has something to do with the BYU football program or something like that. I just don't find that to be credible. But again, those are allegations. We'll let it sort out.
And they did announce the attorney representing Retzlaff is Mark Bout. I don't know if you know Mark, but he did make some initial statements saying he is a nice young man. He's also factually innocent, and we look forward to proving that innocence. Good opening comments from an attorney?
I've used it myself many times. I mean, that's what you say. And I use that in the context of a criminal case. When somebody's charged criminally, what do you say? Hey, I've got a good person here. We're looking forward to our day in court. We want a jury or judge to decide this case. So I think he's saying the right things right now, looking at the case and not wanting to disclose their entire evidence right now. There's no reason to do that. She's disclosed everything. This complaint is very, very forthcoming. It describes in very detailed statements about the alleged assault. Retzlaff and his attorney don't have to do that yet, and they're better not to do that. They're better to do exactly what you just described, which is to say, hey, we're looking forward to our day in court.
Greg, you're great. And it was fun to finally get on air with you.
Yeah, so I hope we get to do it again.
Appreciate your time. We will. As this thing proceeds, I'm sure that we'll have an opportunity to catch up with you quite a few times. And I don't know if you're ever going to bump into a sports story that you need a little bit of help.
I've done my share,
on KSL side of things, but if you need a little bit of sports insight, I'm always here for you.
Hey, it's an honor to be with you, by the way.
It's great to be on the same team.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. There you go, Greg Skordas. His new show will be starting up on KSL June 9th. 43 years of practice. Incredible man. Appreciate his time. We'll take a quick one. We'll come back to what you may have missed and much more. That's all coming up on Hans and Scotty. You know what's crazy is any typical day we would have started out with this Pacers-New York game, and we probably could have given you 3 hours of in-depth reporting on Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals because it was lights out.
It took me, and probably a lot because of the Reggie Miller whole game against the Knicks. It was like I was transported to that series. Back when Reggie Miller is
94.
Yes, back to the 90s. I was transported to that series where all of a sudden the Pacers are coming back and you're like, oh my God, this is a choke job and a half. And what an amazing game.
Incredible game. Okay, so let me give you a couple of numbers that you can take to the people at the office and be like, well, did you know this, Bob? And I don't even know how to categorize these because all of them are just remarkable. One of the bigger numbers is the New York Knicks led by 14 points with 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Again, the New York Knicks led by 14 points with 2 minutes and 51 seconds remaining in regulation. That in and of itself is a number that is just mind-boggling. Now, a couple of other things to keep in mind. Naismith was superb. He ended up with 30 points. He went 8 of 9 from 3. Now, it's not just about 8 of 9 from 3. It's the fact that 6 threes rained down in the fourth quarter alone. That matched an NBA record in a playoff quarter. He matched an NBA record in a Naismith matched an NBA record in a playoff quarter with 6 threes in Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. Okay, so that's another number. Halliburton ended up throwing in 31 points, 11 assists, and it was only the third Pacer duo to score 30 in a playoff game. So both scored 30 or more.
Went on a heater and was making his heat checks.
Okay, so there's a couple of numbers. Here's another one. This goes to the 14 points with 2 minutes and 51 seconds remaining. Game 1 peaked at 99.8% win chance for New York. Almost 100% win chance with 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Okay? Now, for the big number, this is the one that you need to write down and keep it in your mind. Game 1 marked the first time in playoff history that a team trailed by 9 or more points in the final minute of the fourth quarter or overtime in the playoffs and came back. Okay, so here's the number. Until last night, it was 0 and 1,414 since 1998, the restructuring of the postseason. 0 and 1,414 since 1998. Again, that's trailing by 9 or more points in the final minute of a playoff game. It's never happened. The Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3 minutes and 13 seconds of that game, the most in NBA playoff history. The numbers they don't line up. They're absolutely mesmerizing.
That game was over. I had it on in the background. I was watching it. It was 92, 91. I think the Knicks barely had the lead. And I'm like, okay, we got ourselves a ball game. And then all of a sudden, just like that, they were down 10. I was like, okay, this thing's probably over.
It was wild. The improbabilities of this. Like I said, we could do 3 hours on this. I've got enough notes from the New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers, Game 1 that we could just do 3 hours on this. But obviously, there's a lot of big breaking news and a lot of important things that we have to get to. But that Pacers game was spectacular. The win was incredible. And remember, all of this overcame 43 points from Jalen Brunson and 35 points from Karl Anthony Towns. A combined 78 points from Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns in Madison Square Garden, in the craziest, most raucous environment that you could possibly play basketball in. And the Pacers came back. It's just mind-boggling, and it set this series up to be an all-time series. We'll talk more about this. I've got some thoughts on Haliburton and a lot of the heat that he's catching for certain things. We'll talk about that and good, bad, and ugly, and much more. But I've got one of my favorites in studio with Advanced Window Products. Jake.
I'm here. We're here. We're here.
Your number 2A because Janitha is number 1.
Oh, yeah. She's 1.
And then you and Nate are 1A, 1B. So,
yeah, or 2A, 2B. I'll be 2B. Well,
But
Nate be 2A. We'll give him that.
It was great to catch up with Janitha, man.
Yeah, she's awesome. Spitfire, huh?
I know she's typically too busy to come in and hobnob with us regulars.
Yeah, with the regulars.
But I know Advanced Windows is breaking through and doing some amazing things. I told Nate it's just awesome to see you guys be the most wanted window product in the American West.
Yeah.
It's got to be a lot of fun for you guys.
It's fun. The expansion and really kind of growing this thing is what we planned to do. It's what we wanted to do when we came in. And what sets us apart and what makes it all possible is just the quality of the product that we manufacture and install. And then the unique selling proposition that, like, hey, a homeowner's buying the windows directly from the factory. They're not going through a middleman, so they're not getting the middleman markup. A builder-grade window that's marked up is super expensive, and then having to deal with the warranty that they're getting the runaround on. I can't tell you how many homeowners, even that have called us and spoken with us when they need new windows, or they can't get the service people for the previous company that bought they bought windows from, because they're told that that does not, we don't cover that, or that you got to go to the manufacturer, you have to go to your installer. Everything's in house with us, so the homeowners have that peace of mind knowing that when they buy windows from us, they have those windows. There's a lifetime warranty on it, and we're not going anywhere. We're expanding. We're digging our feet even deeper here in Utah, and so there's a lot of comfort that comes to these homeowners.
I always think about this too. Every time I talk to you guys, I always think about this. I picture your warranty vendors like the Maytag man on the commercials, where he's sitting in a chair, feet are kicked up on a table because the product is so good. You don't really have to service. That's why you can warranty it for life. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I can sleep at night knowing that the windows that we're installing, they're not going to have major defects. Stuff happens. That's the reality over in 5 years. Little things, little latches, there will be little issues. But I don't know if Janitha said it when she was in here, but she calls us, we're the Nordstrom of windows. And anyone that is familiar with Nordstrom knows exactly what that means. If there's ever any issue with the product that you buy, you can call us, and we're not going to ask questions. We're going to come out and service those windows and make sure that you're happy. We want happy homeowners. We want happy clients, and that's what we care about.
801-850-9100. Janitha mentioned a Memorial Weekend sale that starts right now.
Starts now.
And will carry through the Memorial Weekend.
Yes.
What do you have to do to activate it, and what is it?
Call. All you have to do is call. And the number to call is 801-850-9100. Call that number and mention us either on air or the Memorial Day sale, and you're going to unlock $3,000 in savings.
So you don't have to buy. You just got to call.
Just call.
Just call, and you get locked in for the savings. They'll get you the estimate. If you like how they come in and give you the estimate, if you like how they represent themselves, if you come in and you see the product, you can go in and you can see how all the products function, and you can pick out your style and colors and everything.
All custom.
Once you get through that $3,000 off will sit on it. All you got to do is call 801-850-9100. Let's just give you a look at what it will cost to replace the windows in your house. They'll also help you understand how much money they can save you through energy costs. So those things all come with this audit. 801-850-9100. More Hans and Scotty coming up.